Hi everyone, thanks for tuning in. Today I'm going to talk about the goal I set for myself for 2022 and what that looks like. So for this year coming up, the goal I set for myself is to run my first ultramarathon. The ultramarathon that I plan on running, it's at a race called Sinister 7, which takes place in southern Alberta in Crow's Nest Pass. The distance of the race I signed up for is 50 miles or 80 kilometers. So what I plan on doing with this video series over the course of the next 6 months is document what my training looks like and all the different elements that go into prepping for an ultramarathon. Setting an ultramarathon as a goal seems fairly big and fairly daunting. And you may wonder why I made that my goal for the year. So part of the reason I made it my goal is I've always been involved in different athletic things and partaken in different sports and activities. And I found I really liked the outlet it provided for me, and especially being able to sign up for different competitive events and the outlet it provided. So in the past, I actually ran before. So I ran a lot in the mid 2000s, so 2005 to about 2010. During that time, I ran a full marathon. I ran a few trail races. So there's another ultramarathon called the Canadian Death Race, which takes place in Grande Cache, Alberta. So at that time, I had some friends who were training for it, and they asked me to be part of their relay team. So that race is 125 kilometers in distance, and we ran it as a 5-person relay team with the legs ranging in length from 18 to 36 kilometers. And I did that with that team for 4 different years. And over those 4 years, I ran the first leg, which is about 18 to 20 kilometers. I ran the fourth leg, which is 36, and I ran the last leg twice, which I think is about 20 to 23 kilometers. And what I found is I really enjoyed trail racing and just getting off the road and the exploring and all the different fun I had with it, with training for and running with it with a group of friends. And then after that time period, life changed a little bit and I was looking to change things up. So I started doing CrossFit and did a fair amount of CrossFit from 2012 to about 2020. I really enjoyed that, met some really great people at the gym, and I also competed in that, which was a lot of fun. But 2020 came along and there wasn't really any competitions anymore. Going to the gym wasn't an option anymore, and I started working a lot more on my own over that time. And what I found was by mid-2021, I was missing that outlet of having a set event, setting the goal and training for the goal and working through that. And during the summer of 2021, I saw someone post about running the 50-mile ultramarathon at Sinister 7, which was a newer event at that race. And I thought, hey, that might be something really neat to go do in the future, especially because back in 2019, I ran Sinister 7 as part of a relay team. The full distance for the full race is 160 kilometers, and we had a 7-person relay team for that race. And I ran a leg that was, I think, 25 or 27 kilometers in length, and I really, really enjoyed it. So after having a couple years off from having anything to train for, I thought it would be a really neat experience to set that really big, daunting goal and work towards achieving it. The other thing that contributes to me wanting to run an ultramarathon is I've been working towards completing my master's degree for the past year and a half now. And as part of that, the course load was really heavy in May to July 2021. And during that time period, I had to step a bit back from training just to really focus on school, as I was completing 3 courses concurrently with a time commitment of 30 hours per week on top of my regular full-time job. So I just set training aside to really focus on that goal. And by the end of the 3 months, I really missed having that level of physical activity in my life. And that's what kind of piqued my interest towards thinking about signing up for something in the future. So when I saw that post on social media talking about this race that was available, I thought, hey, that's a great idea. Let's look at doing that next year. So Fast forward to end of summer 2021, I realized running an ultramarathon is a pretty far distance to run, and to start prepping for that, I needed to start building my base mileage. So from September to December, I worked on just getting back into running, incorporating running into my routine, and running 4 to 5 days per week. And during that time period, I decided to sign up for a 21-kilometer race in September, just to go check it out and make sure I was making the right choice for me. So I signed up for the River's Edge Ultra as a total last minute thing, signed up on the Sunday and went and ran the race on Saturday. And I really, really enjoyed it. It was a race that took place along the North Saskatchewan River, and you're running on trails through the bushes and trees, and you actually got to cross the river at one point. And I really enjoyed the race. And then afterwards, when I was sitting around after, I started talking to another person there who was talking about how they got into running over the past year, and they loved the community aspect of it. And I realized that was something that I really enjoyed about it as well, is the opportunity to get out and about and go spend time with others that have common interests. Now I'll take you through what my base training looked like for September through December, just as I started getting myself back into running. So one of the things you hear with getting into running is you don't want to start with too high a mileage or too high of intensity, because it greatly increases the risk for injury. So I kept that in mind when I started creating my base training program. So what you can see is in September, I started out with really light mileage. That first week I ran just under 20 kilometers. Then I dropped down to 12 the next week. The week after that, I jumped up to 27. The week after that was a lot higher with 44, and that was the week I ran that River's Edge 21-kilometer race. The week after, I dropped down to 14. Then going into October, I started increasing again. So I went up to 48 kilometers one week, down to 11 the next week, 40 kilometers the week after, 25 kilometers the week after that. And then into November, I was at 18, then 25, then 23, then 14. And then for December, I was at 17, 9, and 24. And then the last week of December, I took off and took really easy, because I knew I'd be starting a hard training program starting in January. So what I found with that base building section in the fall is I really, really enjoyed getting back to running. I really enjoyed going out once a week for a long run. I found right now with full-time work and completing my master's degree, I spend a lot of time sitting, a lot of time in front of the computer, so I was really craving that movement. So I found when I go out for an hour to 2 hour run, I really enjoy just getting out, not having to think about anything, just taking a new path every week and being able to go and explore the world around me. And in doing that, I found some really neat places in the city around my house, and just really enjoyed the opportunity to take a break from everything I was doing in my day-to-day and just be able to focus on staying in the moment and just enjoying that I have the ability to move the way I do. I have a body that lets me move the way I do, and I live in a place where I'm able to go out and about like that and find some amazing trails to explore. The other thing I do when I start training for anything is I do a ton of research and reading. So in this case, some of the books I've read along the way to get me started is I read this book called Endure, which I purchased on the airport when I was going on a flight back in September, and it talks about what allows people to partake in endurance events, and I found that was a really good read. I also read Eat and Run, which talked about an ultra runner and how he eats, how he runs, and just it's a bit of biography talking about why he pursued ultramarathon running. And then this one, Born to Run, is one of my absolute favorites. I read it years and years ago, and it talks about humans and running, and I think maybe even though I read it years and years ago, maybe that's what allowed me to think more seriously about training for an ultramarathon now, as I want to see what I'm actually capable of and what it feels like to go for that long of a distance. I also read another one called Relentless Forward Progress, which talks about ultramarathon training. Same with this one. It also talks about preparing for an ultramarathon. And I also read this one called Mental Training for Ultramarathon Running, which talks about the mental component and how you need to be mentally strong to run that long of distance. And then I have a couple older books. So this one's from back when I was running years and years ago. So there's a store called The Running Room, and back when I used to work in the media, the founder of The Running Room came on our noon show one day and had a few books around, and I was able to get a signed copy of that, which was really cool because that was when I was just first starting out on my longer distance running journey. And then lastly, I had this one come in the mail last week called Training Essentials for Ultra Running. I haven't had a chance to read it yet just because school started back up and I've had a lot of school reading to do, but I quickly scanned and flipped through the book and I think it has a lot of great information in it that I will be able to take forward into my training. The one thing I found with all the different reading I was doing is there are a lot of different components that go into running an ultramarathon. In addition to training your body to run the distance, you also have to take things into account like nutrition, hydration, things simple as shoe choices and clothing choices. So I have a fair amount more to learn and test on my body as I go through this journey, and I'll share those in upcoming videos. The last piece I'm going to touch on in this video is what my training plan looks like for the next 6 months. I went online and found a training program called basically just how to complete your first ultramarathon. I thought something like that might be fitting, especially because I'm still completing school, still working full time. So I can't dedicate a ton of time to training, but I can still dedicate a fair amount of time. So I found a program that allows me to balance everything I have going on in my life. So now we'll take a quick look at what that looks like. The program I found is a 26-week program, so it actually doesn't start until next week. Keeping that in mind though, I still did some training this week. So what I did to document my training is I bought myself a nice little journal here with a calendar for each month, and I'm going to use that to track my training to see how much mileage I actually put in over the next 26 weeks. So as you can see, this week I ran a total of 25 kilometers and the time commitment wasn't too bad. Each of those 5-kilometer runs took me about 30 minutes, while the 9-kilometer run yesterday took me about an hour. All in, I was looking at 2.5 hours for training this week, which is completely reasonable and manageable for me with everything I have on the go. Then looking forward, you can see that the mileage slightly builds, so it has 4 running days per week plus 1 strength and conditioning day. So you can see in January I'm looking at 23 to 25 kilometers a week. In February I'm looking at between 26 and 37. In March I'm looking at 35 to 40 kilometers per week. And in April is when it starts to jump. I'm looking at 49 to 64 kilometers. In May, I'm looking at 59 to 68 kilometers. And in June, I'm looking at 80 to 86 at the highest. And then I taper for the race. And then I run the race on Saturday, July 9th. Thank you once again for tuning in to hear about my upcoming journey for the year. And what I'll do is I'll continue to share YouTube videos throughout the next 6 months from now to June to let you know about the different things that come up during my quest to running my first ultramarathon.